Why is it that the United States, despite being the world's largest oil producer, cannot use its own oil? It is just like a person growing wheat on his own land but has to spread it out to others for his own use. In the world we live in, appearances are often the opposite of reality. Similarly, millions of containers from China go to America every year, but why are they thrown away in a dumpster there? And amidst all this, why and how does Iran smuggle Boeing 777s? Welcome to Moon Facts TV. Viewers, did you know that there are about 300,000 ships at sea at any given time? These include oil tankers, LPG, LNG carriers, tugboats and passenger ships, as well as those ships that power the world's economy. Container ships. 90% of global trade is carried out by sea. According to estimates, 6,000 to 8,000 container ships are traveling at sea every minute. With the help of automatic identification systems, they can now be tracked in real time. If you go to websites like Marine Traffic or Vessel Finder, you will see the entire ocean filled with tiny lights. Each light is a giant ship carrying millions of dollars worth of cargo. Most of these container ships are vessels that leave China and travel from Europe to the United States. Surprisingly, each vessel carries an average of 5,000 containers, so 40 million containers are traveling at sea at any given time. From our clothes to our mobile phones, everything has traveled to us in these same containers. At first glance, everything seems normal. Goods came from one side and an empty container went back from the other. But the reality is much more surprising and disturbing than that. Our world's trade balance is completely distorted. China sells so much goods to the world that it floods with filled containers. If we talk about 2023 alone, China's trade surplus was more than $823 billion. That is, in the same year, China exported goods worth $3,380 billion and imported goods worth $2,557 billion. Only then did it fall behind by $823 billion. The problem starts when containers from China reach the US or Europe, where China's surplus is $823 billion, while the entire European Union has only $41 billion, which is 95% less than China. But when these same containers reach the US, everything is messed up here. The US is the world's largest consumer, meaning there is no balance between imports and exports. The United States imports more and exports less, which means that there are more containers going here, but there is not enough cargo to send back. Only 40% of the containers that come to US ports go back full. So the question arises, where do the other 60% of the containers go? You might think that the rest of the containers would be returning empty, but that is not the case. Those containers are rotting in junkyards all over the United States. This is because it costs about $3,000 to ship an empty container back to China, and in addition, this empty box takes up space on the ship that could accommodate a full container containing millions of dollars in goods. This is why China doesn't need a used container that costs $3,000 because China can remanufacture the same container for $2,000. 2.5 million new containers are manufactured every year, while there is no shortage of old containers. So now the question arises, what happens to the empty containers stranded in the US and Europe? Many containers are sold for cheap storage or construction sites. Nowadays, they are also used to build houses and offices, and when there is nothing left, they are melted down to extract the steel, because a container contains about 2 tons of steel. The next time you pass by a port and see steel containers stacked on top of each other, remember that this is not just a joke, but a unique story of the world's broken economy. Now let's come to the question that baffles even the most intelligent people. Why is America the world's largest oil producer, but still can't use its own oil? If we look at the world map, America is currently number 1 in oil production, followed by Saudi Arabia and Russia. But surprisingly, despite extracting so much oil, America is also the world's second largest oil importer, meaning it sells its own oil and buys it from others for its own use. There are three big secrets behind this. The first reason is the difference in oil chemistry. Not all oils are the same. The oil that comes out of America's soil is called light crude oil. It is a light oil with a low viscosity. But the problem is that America's old refineries were built to purify heavy crude oil. These refineries were built when America used to import thick oil from Mexico and Venezuela. Now if they want to purify their light oil, they will have to change the entire technology, which will cost more than $200 billion. Instead of spending so much money, they sell their light oil to the world at a high price and buy heavy crude oil from abroad at a low price. But the chemistry of oil alone does not compel the US to do this. The second reason is the logistical challenge. In the US, oil is extracted elsewhere, while refineries are far away. For example, Texas has a whole sea of oil, but there are no pipelines to transport oil from there to New York or the East Coast. California has become an oil island, where due to the lack of pipelines, it is forced to import 70% of its oil from neighboring countries. By the way, both of these reasons were many, but the final nail in the coffin is the Jones Act. In World War I, there was a big problem in transporting American soldiers and cargo across the sea. The US did not have enough ships to transport its soldiers across the sea. That's when they took the help of ships and sailors from other countries, but here a new threat arose. That if America ever went to war with friendly countries, they would not have the trained sailors and ships to move their soldiers. The only solution to this problem was for America to have its own merchant marine ships that normally transported cargo but could be converted to war mode if needed. Following this, Senator Wesley Jones introduced a bill according to which, in order to send goods from one port in the United States to another, it is necessary that the ship be American and its crew be American. Now, because building a ship in the United States is 3 times more expensive than in China and the salaries of sailors there are also higher, this law has turned its back on them. The United States has only a few ships left to transport oil from Texas to New York, and their fares are so high that a barrel of oil increases by $5. Only then do American refineries feel that if they abandon their own oil and import oil from neighboring countries, they will still find it cheaper. A law that was made to save America is slowly eating America from the inside. The strange reasons why America, despite being the world's largest oil producer, is dependent on others. Apart from this dependence on America, if we talk about the dependence on Iran, then America has imposed sanctions on Iran for years. Due to these sanctions, Iran cannot buy or sell anything from America and its friends. But in Iran's Mahan Air, you will see a large fleet of American and European aircraft, so the question arises here, how does Iran smuggle Boeing 777s? Iran stunned the world when it suddenly had 5 Boeing 777s. This was all possible after years of planning. There is a huge aircraft graveyard in the Alice Springs Desert in Australia that Iran had its eye on. There were 5 old, serviceable Boeing 777s from Singapore Airlines. Iran could not buy those planes outright. Only then did an American company called Bestian Aviation buy them. Then these planes were taken to China, from where they were sold to a fictitious company called Odin Aviation owned by Mad Escort. These companies did not exist, they were only on paper to avoid the eyes of the US. When the planes were registered under the flag of Midug Escort, the US Federal Aviation Administration lost control of the planes and they were then brought to Cambodia. Cambodia is a country where aviation rules are not so strict. Here, these planes became the focus of the world. In July 2025, these planes filed a flight plan to go from Cambodia to Kenya. They were shown to be going to Kenya for maintenance. But as soon as they reached Afghan airspace, where Taliban monitoring is quite weak, they turned off their transponders. After disappearing from radar, these planes changed their route instead of going to Kenya and landed in different cities of Iran, Chabahar, Zahedan and Mashhad. By the time the world realized, these 5 Boeing 777s had become part of the fleet of Iran's Mahan Air. America can't do anything now because all the American companies that were buying and selling were registered under fictitious names. Today, Mahan Air has an active fleet of 50 to 60, most of which are Airbuses, while there are also planes from the American company Boeing. These planes also land in other countries and use their airspace. But America can't do anything because according to the Chicago Convention, unless a country is at war with another, it cannot prevent civilian planes from using its airspace or from landing. But due to sanctions, not enough countries allow Mahan Air flights to refuel. If Europe or friends of America prevent Iranian airlines from using their airspace, Iran can also close its airspace to their planes. And if that happens, flights from the Middle East to Europe will have to suffer a lot. I hope you liked this video from Moon Facts TV. If you liked the video, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. See you in the next video.